So we will call to order. Welcome. So present tonight, we have Graham Ball, Drew Herzig, Greg Kluge, Jonathan Ciesla, Guy Thielen, myself, our staff, our loyal staff attendee Lee is here. Harriet and Stephanie are not here, and Roland is on the Zoom. So thank you for being here. The first item here on the minutes of March 20, I don't know if you had a chance to read those. I only got those to you today. So if you want to postpone that, we can postpone that to our next meeting.
I read them over and they seem good to me.
Does anybody want to postpone? I don't want to rush people if they haven't had a chance to read them. Well, why don't we put that off to the next meeting? And I apologize for getting them to you so late.
That would, I mean, it would be helpful if we postponed.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
I have a quick point of order question. So we're not being video recorded this week.
Oh, that's right. So Steve Barker is on vacation this week. I
You
don't know
take
how
it
to
with him?
I don't know how to turn on the video recording. So it's being audio recorded and that'll be uploaded to YouTube just like it usually is.
Okay,
They just won't see your faces this week.
sounds good.
Okay. And I went to all this trouble. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. We don't have anybody here at this point for public comments. So under old business, I think the first two items are here kind of as a holding point for ongoing discussion as we move along in getting things done and make final decisions on whether we need the extra meetings on April 13th and April 20th. But I don't think we've made enough progress yet to take any of those off our calendars. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay, I don't think we've gotten any emails, have we, Lee?
None.
Okay. And Lee, was there anything that you wanted to report on at this point from the questions? Or are you waiting on Kevin to catch up?
I think that's what,
Okay.
you know as much as I do about that.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna hear from him today, but I didn't.
Okay. So Kevin Butler is reviewing, we identified some questions that would benefit from his input. And so we sent those to him and plan to talk to him last Friday or last
Yeah.
Monday.
It probably would make sense to send that list to the commission as well, if you could do that tomorrow. But it really was intended just to narrow it down to things that we hadn't already gotten a lot of input on. But he was looking at, for instance, the balance of powers points. I asked him to look at that. He was looking at the non-discrimination and the city council election methods, just to see if he had any thoughts about that. There were just 6 or 7 things, I think.
And we don't have any responses from legal though, right?
He's working on finishing up the ones that are, the questions. He's gonna give his input before they're finalized.
Oh, okay, I think I got you.
So that, what I heard you say is he's not going to give us guidance before we come up with a final thing to say, take a look at this and see if it's legal?
No, I think he's already,
He's working on it.
he's reviewing the questions we've given and will give us guidance hopefully by next meeting, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
I told them for instance, that we were planning to vote on the ranked choice voting and the city council election method by April 3rd.
Right.
Although, in my mind, we could have a vote on whether the commission wants to advance those points without having a final agreement on language.
Right.
And he would be commenting probably, well, he might have comments on both language and advisability, but we'll see what he says. And again, I thought we were gonna have some feedback from him today, but he must have gotten bogged down.
Right.
So, item D, I don't know that we need any further discussion about that right now because we haven't made any decisions on issues, but if anybody feels we need to talk about that, speak up.
I do have one, and I agree with, probably we need a separate bucket for the non-discrimination statement. It doesn't really, I was trying to reduce the number of buckets, but it doesn't really go into the ethics orientation training bucket, so that, but in the bucket number 1, updating and simplifying presentation and language, we didn't, at the time, because we weren't thinking about it, we didn't talk about the preamble. We rewrote the preamble quite extensively. And that really doesn't just say updated language. That was kind of expanding the vision for the city. So I don't know where we put that. And I think somebody has the text that we agreed on somewhere. I'm assuming it's in the Dropbox or something like that, where we used some of the 2019 language, but we modified some of it to make it look less Better Business Bureau kind of a thing. But that language that we sort of agreed upon seemed appropriate. I don't think that just fits into an updated language bucket.
So so is preamble and the non-discrimination in a new one?
Two different things.
Oh, two different ones.
I'm
Oh,
agreeing
sorry.
with Linda, because she said in her
Okay.
comment, she said, should this non-discrimination, should that be a separate bucket? And I think probably yes. But the bucket number 1, that's the updated language. I don't think the preamble as we rewrote it really counts as just updated. That's considerably modified. So I don't know what to do with that.
Well, why don't we, for tonight, just note that it doesn't really fit in bucket 1 and we'll figure out where it belongs.
All right?
Okay. All right, so the next item is to pick up where we left off on reviewing the balance of power provision. So Lee, can you pull the draft up on the screen? And I believe we're on 3.12.
So a question about that is we sent around the Ohio Revised Codes language and it doesn't seem to match. Where did this language come from?
This language was suggested by Barbara Hawley, who's a resident of Cleveland Heights, and she came to our public forum.
Okay,
She suggested it, and it was based on that provision. I think that's
Got
the
it.
way I explained it. So it's not exactly the same, but it was based on 733.6.
got it. Yeah, cause I thought the ORC's language was actually a little nicer. But
The one that Lee sent around?
yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Like she got in the weeds a little bit. I felt like that was some of our discussion last time.
Yeah.
But I have to double check. You need any help?
I think I have it.
So that's, for those of us who are still tied to paper, that was this text that we were looking at last week. 312, council interactions, et cetera, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, it's 312.
All right.
Were we good on that first paragraph?
I thought we were, and we were talking about the second paragraph.
Well, actually, I wanted to add something because he pointed out the meaning of that, and I really appreciate that because that makes it so much clearer. And I would beg the commission's indulgence in adding a comma after impediment, because to me, that would really say that these are two separate clauses. And it's like the administration should be conducted without unreasonable impediment, comma, and that members of council, just to break up those two thoughts. So I just would like to put a comma after impediment.
Can't really see what's on there.
Right here.
Yeah.
Do you have a paper copy, Linda?
I think I do, but I
Here.
can find it.
It's, yeah,
Let me
it starts
read that
on
paragraph.
section 3.2 operations. Thank you.
I'm really close.
problem with the comma.
So should we, every time we change something, should we do a motion? Does that help with record? Or will just the minutes will say added a comma, no objections, and we're good? Like, you know, the tracking of it? Because I know that was some place that got a little screwy.
I think with Robert's rules, we can just have a consensus, and like if there's any kind of disagreement, then we should probably have a vote. But
And I think then when we've made whatever changes we want to make, when we decide to adopt it, that's when I think we need a vote.
Okay. I'm thinking of the clarity and the tracking, 'cause
Absolutely, yes.
that's
Yes,
happened before.
we've been all over the map, yeah.
Is everybody okay with the comma?
Sure.
Thank you. And it's not even an Oxford comma, so I'm not really burning up my comma credit here.
Okay, so we're in paragraph 2.
So are you, Lee, are you gonna put in a comma there, or it's just gonna stay in the notes?
Everybody agreed, I can add it.
Thank you.
Do you want me to take the keyboard so you can have to stand?
If you wanna take notes, that's okay. I'll hand it off to you.
Okay.
Move right, so you just agreed. Minutes.
There you go.
Now, is there any way of bringing up the wording that you sent around that dealt with this second paragraph?
Yeah, we can bring it up through browser,
What was it, ORC?
73306.
also section 312.
Oh,
No, it's and section 312. Okay, that makes more sense.
So I think we have, I mean, the second sentence is already in the charter someplace.
I just remember I felt like it handled staff better. There was a lot of discussion last time about
Yes.
staff.
Yes, I asked Lee about the several officers, and that's defined elsewhere, but I couldn't get a clear definition. But that does not, to me, cover just any employee of the city.
It does not.
Yeah.
As I read it, it does not. But I think in our case, that it's important to have that because I think there's been a lot of confusion about participation by city staff in city council meetings and committee meetings. And I think it will be helpful to the functioning of the city if we try to clarify what the rights of city council are to request people to attend meetings, to balance out the mayor's right to attend meetings. So I think it's important, and I think it's important to specify that when people are asked to attend, they're supposed to attend. And obviously it's to talk about things that are relevant to their, their responsibilities. You can't just call them in to shoot the breeze.
I agree
I
on
don't
the
think
need of,
anybody's gonna do that.
I agreed on the need of clarity, but I really think we need to stop at the directors and the several officers. To say that the council can summon individually any employee of the city, I think is really breaking the necessary chain of command that human resources and the city department directors need to be able to rely on. For the council to kind of brush aside the public works director and say, no, we want to speak to Joe Smith, I think is problematic on both sides.
I guess I don't see it as that big a problem, but what do other people think?
Can I just offer I would be I don't have any trouble with the way it is, but it's arguably more comfortable if it said something like any personnel with their director or something of that nature, so they aren't being pulled out of their position no matter how low it is in the organization or how how close it is. They will have the support of their director if they do appear. If that makes sense, does that make sense to anybody?
Absolutely, and I think maybe saying as authorized by the department director, something like that.
I wouldn't want to go there because then that would give the department director a veto over the council's power to request that somebody appear. I mean, that wouldn't seem to make sense to me.
Okay, all right.
I guess I don't have a problem with leaving it as general as possible because you're still not precluding directors or anybody else from appearing. So if a subordinate's called, the director can appear. I mean, you're not saying only the subordinate can appear and no directors, nobody else. It's not,
Meetings are open to the public.
right. So anybody can appear. So
Yeah.
I'm fine with leaving it as general as possible. And I think in light of what's happened in the past couple of years, my preference would be to leave it as general as possible.
And I think that's just why I'm opposing it. I'm really afraid that the council will start saying, we want so-and-so to come in. And some of the councilors indicate that they will then try to forbid directors from attending the meetings. So that
There's
this
no
doesn't-
language to support that, though, Drew.
I know there is language, but they've still been trying to do it anyhow. You know, that's where I'm
Preclude
saying,
people from attending meetings?
yes.
When has that happened?
One of our counselors who came in said she would like to be able to forbid certain elected individuals from attending meetings.
I don't recall that. Who
That
said that?
was Counselor Russell who said, can we forbid the mayor from attending our meetings?
I think she was
Oh,
talking about
those are
executive
council
session. That's
Yeah.
that's a
Yes,
different issue.
No, those were council meetings, not executive sessions.
Yeah, which should not include the mayor.
Yeah, let me just suggest that, there is a provision in the charter now that says that the mayor may attend and participate in meetings. And then there was another issue that was raised, I think by Councilor Russell and maybe by Councilor Kuda, about whether council should have authority to exclude the mayor from certain executive sessions. So let me suggest we put that aside as a separate matter to discuss, because I think that's on that chart.
It's on the list that I prepared, yeah.
Because that gets into sort of slightly different issues.
My only thought is, should we add in M or designee? I mean, if we're gonna be general, I know sometimes, would somebody be taken to task, if they're like, well, the director didn't show up, it's like, well, their designee showed up, or do we need to be that deep? Am I being paranoid? Do you know what I mean?
I would suggest that if council requests a director to attend, and again, I'm going to assume people are going to act in good faith. And if the director for some reason can't make it that day, that the director would say to the committee chair or to the president of council, I'm sorry, I can't make it. Is it okay if I send somebody? And they'll work that out.
That's what I was thinking. I just know, like, I've seen it argued on the law side, but not on the charter side, of designees or whatnot.
When you say the law side, what do you mean?
Oh, I've seen it more with like like in a zoning code or something, like the board of zoning, like when it names positions that people have gotten hung up on that, but it was the law, it wasn't the charter, which to me is higher than.
Ordinance?
Yeah, yes, ordinance, code. I couldn't think of the word. So I've seen it in that, and that's when people start really splitting hairs though and arguing a lot more. So it's just a normal.
Yeah, I guess I
But I
wouldn't.
think it's a good point. It's not necessarily, I don't think, now that we've talked about it, I'm good.
Okay. Well, let me suggest this. Does anybody else want to comment on this?
I just want to make one comment. I'm the one that raised the designee issue the last time, and I have to say that by now I'm comfortable saying that, assuming people are going to act in good faith, and if someone, you can't expect specific performance of an individual at a specific time necessarily in an absolute sense. So yes, there's going to, in good faith, someone will be there, I guess is what I'd say, and that should be fine. So I'm happy without using the term designee.
Okay. Roland, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with us putting language in it to encourage directors and others to meet. But I am a little leery of trying to put it in directly to the charter. So I think we're all struggling with the same thing, trying to strike a balance. So let's continue to strike that balance. But I can see so many unintended consequences falling from this that I'm a little afraid.
I didn't hear the beginning of what you were saying. So do you have changes you wanna suggest, or do you have a comment about the language?
No, I'm okay. I'm
Okay.
just putting in the caution, and I think others have the same. I'm good to go.
Okay, Graham?
Like, don't get in the weeds too far.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
And I just wanna note that the content says it's gotta be the president of council or a committee chair. So we're not opening it up broadly to any person who's been elected to council and now has the right to do yada, yada,
Right.
yada. You know, so I think that's a wise way of doing it, and I think we should, glad to see that.
Yeah. I think that I like the language that is here. I think that I think that it makes sense to me that if there is a specific employee that needs to be called, that they could be called. But that having, to just, assuming good faith is what we have to try to do, I guess.
So can I have a motion to approve 3.12 with the comma change?
I'll move that since
I second it.
Any further discussion?
I second it, sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So let's move to, we go now to Article 4,
Yeah.
Section 1.
don't we, okay, so I'm sorry, I thought we were approving just the first paragraph. We approved that whole section, huh?
Yes.
Okay. I'm actually opposed to the personnel part of that kind of thing, so I don't know.
Okay, well, we can mark you as a no.
Yes, please.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Oh wait, 5, 1.
6-1.
Thank you. 1, 2. I just need to do this. Sorry.
Five, right?
Okay.
Roland can't vote.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, Roland can't vote.
No, but that's still 5 and 1.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to Article 4, Section 1. And the change here was really just for clarification, because when I read this, I was very confused. So does anybody have any questions about the change? And what all I did basically was add language that say the mayor serves until a successor is chosen. Unless he's recalled or, one of those very, very unlikely to occur situations.
No, to me, actually, so the mayor shall serve for a term of 4 years and shall serve until the next, 1st of January. We're not saying the successor is chosen and qualified, the successor would be elected, a mayor would be elected. So to say the mayor will serve until the successor is chosen and qualified skips over an election.
I think that was language that was used
Chosen.
also in the
Interesting.
city council section. Can you go back up to that?
Which section is it?
It is part of what's been struck out. The strikeout says a successor is chosen and qualified.
Is that because of
Yeah,
like
that was at the end of the sentence,
appointments?
Graham.
I would think that's because of vacancy provisions that allow council president to be acting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so Graham, those words were just moved up from the end of the sentence.
Drew.
Drew, I'm sorry.
Yes, I noticed that. Yeah, which,
So
but
they're
that.
not new
that-
words.
No, but that was talking about if the mayor is removed, recalled, or disqualified. That's when the successor will come in. So that was if the mayor is removed from office before the end of the term.
Unless.
I'm sorry, I didn't see the language about city councilors. Did we find that?
I got confused.
Okay.
So I just went back because
Already. So what I'm
there's
saying is,
chosen and qualified in here.
yes,
Did we? And then I thought Lee pointed out up in we're talking about vacancies of council, that there would be a success, like that's somebody
Well,
appointed.
yeah, but we're not talking about vacancy, we're talking about serving a term until, not removed, not resigned, not this or that, serve until the next election cycle or whatever. I mean, we're not,
Maybe the right word, I'm looking now at the city council language, and in that language, it says, shall serve for a term of 4 years or until. It's or. So maybe this should say, or until the mayor's successor is chosen and qualified.
well, again, that is, and to me, it's, the mayor shall serve for a term of 4 years, period. If the mayor is removed from, recalled, or disqualified from office, the mayor's, sorry, I can't reconstruct this right at the moment kind of thing, but it's sort of like, I want to split this up into serving a full term of office, and if something happens and the mayor is removed or called, recalled, or disqualified. I think we're crushing two separate systems together here.
Yeah, I'm good to 3.1.
No. It starts at
Oh,
3.2,
right.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I can pull up the regular one.
I like the removal of the election year in 2021 starting because that's irrelevant now.
While he's doing that, I'd just like to note that I like the language the way it is right now, because it allows for the fact that due to very unexpected and difficult circumstances, we don't have an election, or the election is interrupted by an insurrection of some kind, and which is not beyond the imagination these days. So if you don't have someone elected as mayor, your mayor continues, is the way it's written now, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think that's,
Well, I don't have a problem with leaving it the way it's written now.
yeah, I mean,
I stumbled over it when I was reading it, and I thought it doesn't feel like the words are in the right order. And if you look at the city council provision, that one says, they shall serve for a term of 4 years or until their successors are chosen and qualified.
yeah, but to me, chosen and qualified doesn't say elected. I mean, we're still doing it by elections, hopefully. I think the language as it currently is seems perfectly clear to me. The mayor shall serve for a term of 4 years unless removed from, recalled from, or disqualified for the office of mayor, at which time the mayor's successor is chosen or qualified. That could be cleared up a little bit.
Yeah, because that's like, at which time is referring to the end of the 4 years
Yes.
and referring to
Yes,
being removed
yeah.
from recalled from.
Yeah, right, yeah.
See, and the fact that under the council section, it does already state that successors are chosen and qualified. I would like to keep it chosen and qualified. I figure it's in the current charter and it works, so I would like to keep the language the same for consistency too.
Yeah, I know, but successors chosen and qualified does not say elected, and I'm just kind of sticking with that.
Okay.
But it describes the first sentence. The term of the mayor shall begin the first day of January next following the election of the mayor. So they're to be read together.
I guess,
The
so
mayor
my,
shall serve a term of 4 years and shall serve until the mayor's successor is chosen and qualified, based upon the election that occurred according to the previous sentence, is how I read it.
I can see that there would be that legal situation where the election isn't what's putting the mayor in office, right? Like if it's council president or, I mean, like I feel like that language is there because it's not always an election, right?
well, yeah, I guess chosen and qualified, I think is more general. I find it more general than elected, because it allows for the fact that there could have been a death and then someone was appointed, et cetera, but they are chosen and qualified. We do it by election, as the first sentence indicates. So I don't know that there's a risk of any kind with this terminology that we're trying to somehow mitigate. It looks like it communicates without implying that we don't have elections.
Well, I don't care if it changes or not, so we can leave it the way it is now unless somebody else has a problem with that, but just take out that initial election sentence. Cause that's past us.
That may be something to send to the, I hate to slow things up to send to the law office or anything like that. but
Which,
This section here, not taking out that last sentence, that's fine, because we're past 2021, so that.
well, can I just retract my suggestion and we'll leave it as it is?
That's fine with me.
Does anybody have an objection to
When you
that?
say leave it as it is, you mean just the original.
Leave it the way
What's
it is
currently
now
in the
in the charter, except that the last sentence comes out.
Last two.
Well, yeah, the effective thing too.
Okay, so it will read, the term of the mayor shall begin the first day of January next following the election of the mayor. The mayor shall serve for a term of 4 years unless removed from, recalled from, or disqualified for the office of mayor, at which time the mayor's successor is chosen and qualified.
Correct,
And we just dropped the last sentence, which has to do with 2021.
right.
I mean, do we need a motion for that?
I think so, because,
Well, I think we should just resolve that we're not gonna make the change.
okay,
And
Well, I mean, the only change we're making is dropping the last sentence.
we're dropping the last sentence.
So
Is everybody okay with this section with just the last sentence and the effective date dropped? Any issues?
the phrase at which time the mayor's successor is, should we that change to shall be chosen and qualified?
If we change it here, I think we have to change it in the other section, because that's the way it's written in the other section,
Okay.
and I don't know that it needs to be changed.
Okay, fine.
We all okay with that?
So this is what it would be. Basically, any of your edits I just took out.
Yeah.
This is why I like track changes, by the
Yes.
way.
Okay, Roland, do you have any questions or anything you wanna say about that?
Just a question. I can't remember, is there an age qualification for mayor?
No.
No?
I think he has to be a voter,
Yeah.
so yes.
Okay.
Approved by consensus to remove last sentence. Good with that summary?
Okay. And then we go to executive powers, and there's a numbering problem here because this compare shows that as 4.3
That should be 4.2.
when it's, unless it's, yeah, it's section 3. So in other words, section 2 doesn't appear here because there weren't any changes to section 2 in the one that I'm looking at. So we go straight to 3. Is everybody clear with that if you have a paper copy?
It's clear.
Do we renumber that as 2 now, or is that?
No, there is
no.
a 2, it
It's
just
just
isn't on the,
something.
it isn't on the printout because I didn't change it,
All right,
okay?
And that was section 2 qualifications.
Right.
That's where it goes into the voter requirement,
no, that's
which was
the
discussed.
residency, mayor be
Yeah.
here 18 months.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I guess the only thing, I'm just looking at this now, the only change I see that we need in Article 4, Section 2 is that it refers to the mayor being a resident and elector. And I think we're changing that to registered voter. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, and I think that's, when we decide on it, we need to decide if that's going to be part of our updated language kind of a thing, more or less
Mhm.
throughout.
Yeah, well, I think it makes sense that it is because
Yeah.
elector's kind of dated.
Yeah.
We have that written right now in bucket 1,
Mhm.
as an example of the updated language.
Okay, so shall we move to 4.3? So 4.3 has a couple of changes. There's a change at the beginning that really relates to some changes that I suggested in Article 5. So I suggest we put that aside for the moment. And then there's, further down in this section, I added a couple sentences about preparing reports and performing duties under ordinances, that was in one of the other charters, Lakewood. So I thought it made sense to state those. Does anybody have a question about that?
Yes. For the council to pass a resolution imposing a duty on the mayor, I think is breaking the separation of powers.
Why would a resolution be different?
Because that's the council. I don't think,
Okay.
aside from a charter amendment, I don't think the council should be able by a vote to impose a new duty on the mayor that's not reflected in the charter.
You know, I don't know, Lee, do you have a sense of whether resolutions might typically say something about the mayor doing one thing or another?
I know that I've seen the council give a mayor an executive signatory authority.
Right,
represent-
contracts,
yeah.
it's usually authorized to enter into, directs the mayor to enter into contracts.
But yeah, but is that by resolution or is that by ordinance?
That's usually the ordinance.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the resolution context.
See, and I was thinking like, but we're a board of trustees at RTA,
Mm-hmm.
so they do stuff like that by resolution, but it's
Mhm.
there's no executive branch. I mean, there's a CEO, but they have to give her explicit authority to act on their behalf.
It may be by, and this may be under the city manager, but I seem to remember resolutions directing, probably the city manager, to send copies of the resolution to relevant people like our senators.
Yeah,
But I don't know if they still do that under the mayor form.
I'd be
Oh, I
happy
don't
if you
know.
just struck out the resolution by ordinance or by general law, and take out the by resolution of council.
okay, I think that's okay. Does anybody else care about taking that out? So we'll take out the words or resolution of council.
I'm fine with that.
Roland, do you have any concern about that?
I don't know.
I mean, city council could still ask for a resolution for the mayor to do it, and if he ignores it, then.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So is everybody okay with that language, with that change?
Are we talking about the
These
whole
two
section now or
sentences, just these two sentences.
Okay, fine, yes. With the change, I'm fine with it.
I have no objection to the change.
Okay.
Removing or resolution of council or just.
We're taking out or resolution of council.
Yeah.
And we have to put an or in here then, right?
There was one already.
So that reads by this charter, by ordinance, or by general law.
Wait, so the way this is reading, duties conferred upon or required of the mayor by this charter, comma, by ordinance of council or by general.
No, take out of
Of
council.
council as well.
Just say by ordinance or by general law. Because only council can make ordinances.
Right.
Or by general law, got it.
Okay, so now we're going to 4.10, which is filling vacancies. So just as a little bit of context on this,
I think you needed a comma after ordinance.
we had talked about filling vacancies in the city council context. And we had agreed that we liked the language that was suggested by the 2019 commission, which put in a different timeline for an appointed member of council to first run for office. You know, so right now, we just had somebody resign, so whoever's appointed to fill that seat will need to run again in November, which is pretty much the same thing that Gail Larson had to do. So we've already discussed language for city council that would change that. So if you look at the language in the charter now for what happens if there's a vacancy for the mayor, it's done in a very different way. The timeline is different. The timeline basically prefers the let's get it before the voters sooner rather than later premise. You know, whereas in the context of city council, we decided that it's not so important to get it before the voters, the first election that rolls around, we can wait a little longer. But in the case of the mayor, the language that was approved by the voters very recently says that if the absence commences 180 days or less before the next scheduled November election for mayor, then the person just serves till the end of the term. And otherwise, at the next November election, that's at least 180 days away, there's an election for mayor. So, there's policy issues both ways. I think you could make an argument that in the case of the mayor, because we only have one, there may be good reason to say it should go before the voters sooner, as soon as possible. Meaning the 180 days concept would just stay. And the other reason I think speaks in favor of keeping the schedule that's in the charter now is because the voters just approved it. So it feels kind of odd for us to propose a change in that, but what do you all think?
In the current charter, it says, and this is Article 4, Section 10, second paragraph, blah, 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 blah. The council shall declare the office of the mayor vacant, and the president of council shall become mayor and shall cease to be a member of council. Obviously, that needs to change.
Well, I'm discussing right now the timing for filling the vacancy rather than the line of succession, because that's a different issue.
We're gonna come back to that at
Yeah.
some point?
Mhm.
Okay, Marty. Now, again, if a vacancy, the third paragraph, if a vacancy is declared, again, this is where I'd need to see a graph, because again, the language here, 180 days here, unexpired term, blah, blah, blah kind of thing. So anything we can do to clear this up would be
Well,
fine with me.
let's do what we did before. Let's give a timeline. So the mayor's, what we
The mayor has an unfortunate accident and can no longer serve on March 1st.
Cool.
Then city council can declare the office vacant after that goes on for 60 days. So that would be May 1st, using rough
March,
dates.
April, May, got it.
Then you go through the succession thing. But once you've got the succession figured out, the vacancy has been declared. And if that absence happened 180 days or less before the next scheduled November election,
Which in this case, we March to May, is that 180 days?
well, the November election,
It says
so
next
March, April, May, June,
regularly
July,
scheduled
August, September,
November.
it's more than 180 days. So then the election would be in November.
Cool. So if the mayor
The
became,
vacancy started March 1st.
and if the mayor was, became unable in August, then they have to wait till September, June, July, August, September. And then September, October, November, that's only 3 months, which is
So it would go to the year
180.
after that.
Okay, so it push.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's two issues here. One of them is, should we keep the timeline that's in the charter now? And the second one is, how do we deal with the line of succession? So right now, let's talk about the timeline. Whether we think this 180-day concept for mayor is better than using the approach for city council, which is it's a different timeline.
Was it 90 days for city council? I'm trying to remember.
It's more like there's a 2-year concept.
Not in this.
I think one of the reasons we did that for the council is because it's staggered elections. And we didn't want somebody to come in just before a staggered election there would not normally be running for and yet have to run for it. I don't
Yes.
think that's the case with the mayor.
True.
Oh, no.
So with that in mind, maybe a little clarification of language, but I'm okay with the 180
Yeah.
days kind of thing. But that still is 6 months, which is.
Yeah, and I will say that, when I first thought about this, I thought, well, maybe it makes sense to have them both use the same system, because if there's a vacancy in the mayor, you could very well end up with a vacancy on city council, and shouldn't they both be on the same schedule? Then when I thought about it further, I thought, well, there's a good reason to have the mayor handled differently, and furthermore, the voters just approved this. So again, it felt kind of funny to me that we would be second guessing the voters on that. The succession, the line of succession is a whole different issue, and I have other thoughts on that. But does anybody want to weigh in on this, the timeline part? Are you okay with the 180-day concept?
Yeah, I think we should keep it as it was approved in 21.
Okay. Roland?
I'm good with that.
Okay. Guy?
I'm good.
Okay. So the second question about the succession planning. I find the concept in the charter now unnecessarily complicated, and it really bothers me that it has no deadlines. We know that we need deadlines.
What language are you addressing right now?
I'm addressing the second paragraph
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
current charter, which I modified to say that if the mayor can't serve, the acting mayor serves. So the acting mayor is the president of council. So that's sort of a temporary position. But if you hit that 60-day point, there's a declaration of a vacancy, then
And I hate to interrupt, but I just want to get all our ducks in a row. So we're looking at, in the printout, the absence and vacancy, your suggestions as compared to what's currently in the charter.
yes.
All right.
So if the mayor is out of commission for more than 60 days, or if he resigns, then the acting mayor keeps going until the term expires or we get a substitute mayor. So basically, what I was suggesting is you consider that the new mayor will be the president of council if that person is willing to do it, which may not be the case because it's a full-time job. And somebody who's a president of council may have a day job they don't want to give up. So they have to decide within 5 days whether they're going to take it or not. And if they don't, in my draft, the council appoints a mayor. And it could be somebody else on council, or it could be somebody not on council. But they have to do it within 30 days.
Okay, should we back up just a second?
Sure.
So you've got this red line, in any case, mayor's inability to perform duties. What's that all about?
Where are you reading now?
I'm reading from your section 10, absence and vacancy. Second
Oh,
line.
so those words, the mayor's inability to perform duties,
Uh-huh.
that was just shorthand.
Okay, so we can ignore that?
Because the mayor is absent and inaccessible or is unable for any reason to perform the duties.
Okay.
So we keep referring to that as mayor's inability to perform duties, so we don't have to use so many words.
That's not language you wanted to introduce there, correct?
I'm sorry?
You did not want to introduce that language right there in the text.
It's a defined term.
That it will
Yes,
be
she's introducing it.
Okay, so this is legalese now here.
I would call it a defined term to make it easier to read the rest of the section.
I'd call it smart writing.
Okay.
And then what I thought was interesting, Drew, I don't know if you're reading, is it's you brought up something about was it the president of council? In that first paragraph, it actually is correct. I can't remember what it is. You just said a few minutes ago.
Yeah, in the second
President of
paragraph,
council is acting mayor.
Yeah, but in the second paragraph, it says if the president becomes council, he ceases to become, or he or she ceases to become a member of council. So we do want to
Oh,
correct
see,
that.
shall not thereby cease to. See, it already says that here. Shall
Yes.
not.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so in the acting
Yeah.
role,
Okay.
they stay on council.
That's that one point of yours.
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So the addition of unable or unwilling, that is fine. And then here's where you use that term, if the mayor's inability to perform duties, that's where it becomes
Temporary, yeah.
applicable, deemed considered as acting mayor kind of thing. All right,
It's
so-
like if he goes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay, so that is all taking the place of the first paragraph in the current charter, is that correct?
It's taking place of the second paragraph. That gets into all this, the charter right now says
Okay. so
you give it to the president of council, but if that person turns it down, then you go to the vice president of council, and if that person turns it down, you go to somebody else on council. And we'll be 9 months without a mayor by the time that goes on.
Okay, so basically, we've got the first paragraph, we've made those changes in your red line kind of thing. Then starting with the second paragraph, we've got that in the new red line, if the mayor's inability to perform duties is deemed temporary. And then we're looking at that text now, correct?
Mhm.
Okay,
And this is basically just, if he's off for 30 days, president council can step in, he can come back, life's good.
Yeah.
And then this is where it starts getting into the fun. Okay, if after 60 days,
Yeah.
council's gonna say, okay, acting mayor, and this is where you start getting into timelines.
Yeah.
So the mayor shall continue to serve until the first of one of these occur, and then you do the 70 days or the, okay.
Yeah, so in the one case, if you have something like death or resignation, it's done. But if you had one of these more nebulous situations, like somebody is disabled, you have to wait 60 days till it's clear that they're not gonna be able to resume their, their duties. That's why it's got both 70 and 10.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then the reason you're saying here, or not you, but it's saying the president of council shall cease to be a member of council is because now they're really the mayor. They're
That's
like the mayor, like
Right.
no one's coming back, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Okay. So then, yeah, you can't have them filling both roles.
But the other thing to consider in terms of simplification is you could have the president of council stay in that acting mayor position. And rather than saying that the president of council will become mayor, you could simply say council has 30 days to pick a mayor. And they could pick the president of council, or they could pick Guy.
Mhm.
They don't have to pick somebody on council. You don't have to accept.
Thank you.
Yeah, they
You
could,
probably would have to apply.
That's interesting.
But to me, you want as few steps as possible. I mean, there could be an advantage if you had a president of council who was ready and willing to serve, maybe it would make a lot of sense to just have that person step in. But if you get past that, kind of obvious choice, I don't think you want to have 4 other choices before you, go to a general ask for applications and see who wants the job.
I'll just put a vote in to say that I do like the idea of opening it up, allowing council to appoint the mayor from a larger pool of people, which essentially is qualified, somebody's qualified to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you that it's very important to have a time frame. Otherwise, it could go on.
So in other words, you like to have the shorter series of things.
I like what you've done with it.
It's interesting to think about, like, just the auto council president becomes mayor. Because it's such an obvious choice that the council president would be the appointed mayor. They almost feel like council would vote to appoint the mayor, or if the council president wanted to be the mayor, that the council would probably
Well,
appoint
they
that
might
person.
or they might not.
yeah, for sure.
Right.
It depends on who's on council and, realities of politics. But I think, again, there are other charters I looked at that say that the president of council becomes mayor and you just wait for the next election, period. So I'm not sure what the source was for what's in our charter currently. It just seemed unnecessarily complicated to me, especially without any deadlines.
I think it really is different skill sets. Some council
Mhm.
presidents maybe have the skills to become mayor and others would absolutely not.
Mhm.
And to write it in that they can just say, I am unwilling to, take this office on a permanent basis is good,
Yeah, or they may not want to give up their day job.
for sure.
But I guess the question is whether we think that it should go to the mayor go to the president of council first? And only if that person doesn't want it, do you go to a bigger pool? Or do you wanna go immediately to the notion that council will appoint somebody temporarily and it's not gonna necessarily be the president of council?
See, what I like about the timeline is then also council's not paralyzed. Because if the council president's acting the whole time, do they elect a new president? Do they need a new council? It kind of forces something, so then it's either, okay, let's say the president of council, so we're down one, we need a new president of council and a new council member. And the 60, it kicks up the other timeline, so then you can kind of fill the government.
Yeah.
Versus this quasi space where it's like, okay, I'm president of council, but don't elect a new president of council, but don't get a new council member, but it, I think it's clear, and it's a good point I thought about if it is the president of council, they can just declare or someone else, it's just this nice, it doesn't have to be this good luck, Godspeed thing, and I hope, I hope being president of council, you're ready for everything. Instead, you can say,
I just want to confirm that what Drew is saying, that it's a very different skill set to be the president of council and to be a mayor.
Right.
yeah,
Right, and to presume that even if the president of council wanted it, the president of council would necessarily be the choice that the rest of the council, who are the people who are doing the work here, would choose. I think we can not make that presumption and have, in that eventuality, a possible better result.
and maybe time.
Well, to build on that, I just feel like, when council elects the council president at the beginning of the term, right?
Right.
But so if you have the auto appointment in place, is council then going to be considering their vote as both for the council president, but then also in the back of their mind, this person could become the mayor, right? To the kind of different skill sets question.
Yeah, I think though that, let's be real, we haven't had a whole lot of experience that I'm aware of in Cleveland Heights of needing to fill the mayor slot. So first of all, we only just got a mayor. But even when we had a mayor who was president of council, we didn't have a history of those people resigning or being removed or anything like that. So the chances that we ever have to fill a vacancy in the office of the mayor is pretty remote. Because it's just a different job, especially because it's full-time, and if somebody commits to it, it's a different level of commitment.
Right.
When we've had people resign from council, sometimes it's been because people got sick. That's what happened with Mary Dunbar. She just physically couldn't do it anymore. And that's what's more often gonna happen. And we have a lot more experience with vacancies on city council, but I think the vacancies for the mayor are very, very, very seldom gonna happen.
Yeah, I was just gonna, time's important too, suddenly you go from a few council meetings to every single day and a whole staff to deal with. It's a large,
It's a big jump.
yeah, and not allowing him out just makes it complicated.
Well, yeah, the out definitely makes sense. I think, in my mind, the question is, do we put them in automatically?
Right, that's the question. Do you put them in automatically, or do you just say city council will vote on essentially a temporary mayor? And the argument for having city council do it is they're all elected, so they've got to answer to the voters, so.
And just to let you guys know, what's on the screen is, I just temporarily accepted all of our changes, so you don't have to see the cross out. So if we said, yes, we like everything, that's how it would read. So I don't know if that's a little easier, I find it sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot of red stuff and crossouts on there.
I saw, and then there were sections at the bottom, so this is a little bit more compact.
I think to prevent a void and to prevent council having to summon before an emergency meeting, I think having the president of council automatically become acting mayor makes sense.
Well, I don't think we're talking about being acting mayor. We're talking about when you get past that 60-day period and it's really not an acting anymore, but you're gonna declare the office vacant and you're gonna have somebody take on the job of mayor. At that point, do you want it to go first to the president of council unless they don't want it? Or do you want city council to vote on who should fill that vacancy. Right, Guy?
Yes.
See, and I wanted to first go to president council. I don't want there to be a gap or a question, because sometimes votes are harder to come by, and votes under duress are even worse. Where it's just clarity.
So I don't, just to be clear, the president of council becomes acting mayor, period, until a time frame. And the time frame that's given here is 70 days, I think.
Could be 70, could be 10.
Could be 70, could be 10. But then the replacement, the process of replacing someone is whether, the question is, we always have an acting mayor. Okay, so we're never devoid of a mayor.
Yep.
The question is, do you want to necessarily put the president of council into the mayor's position for the remainder of the term, yada, yada, yada? And that's where I'm expressing that I'd rather have council have the ability to look at a larger pool of candidates and put the right person, rightly skilled person in that role.
Well, and I think we're on the same page in terms of, by saying upon declaration, that gives that ability.
No, you're in different places, because
Yeah,
you're saying you
you're-
you like having it go to the president of council, not as
Oh.
acting, but as mayor.
No, I'm sorry, only for the 70 to 10 days.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
Sorry about that, I would have stuck in my head, this does not, I'm just gonna tell it anyway. Not directly related, because, so I grew up in Newburgh Heights, which is I think a non-chartered. And my dad was president of council and the mayor died. And then he got it, and then after a few months had to step down because he had a full-time job, and
Yeah.
like a whole lot of stuff happens. And so it was just like kind of seeing it, it's like oh yeah, no, it's nice for that temporary, but it's a hell of a burden. So I'm good with this language as it is.
Okay,
Sorry, that's what my thing was. So it was
Okay.
the 70 to 10. I just didn't want that gap. I didn't want them to go, okay, well, they're dead, so let's call a vote. Well,
Right.
you know.
That makes sense. Good.
Sorry about that
you're
confusion.
both,
I think
well-
we're both on the same page.
so are you both saying you like the way it was written here,
Yes.
all of it,
Me.
I am saying yes, I'm in support of what you've written,
all of it?
yes.
All right, so it goes, the president of council becomes acting mayor, and then once the vacancy is officially declared, if the president of council wants to stay on as mayor, he or she does, until you get to the election business with the 180-day time.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not careful enough in my expression.
You want council to
I
appoint?
want council to have the.
That's what I thought you wanted.
Okay, I apologize.
Okay,
No, it's because we're looking at 3 or 4
it's
different sets
okay,
of language.
this is complicated,
Eh,
it's complicated.
this isn't my strong suit.
Yeah, that's why I think what Jonathan had up there on the screen is helpful, if you wanna look
Yeah.
at that, because
Yeah.
Like if we said, we're gonna go with it as it's written, that is how it would read.
Right.
And I can make it bigger or
That's
scroll
Yeah.
or slower, but
No,
I just found it, cause,
we're okay up to section A.
okay.
We're
so
fine
then
with
let's go
that.
down.
We're fine with the
Yeah,
acting.
This is where there's a lot of extra cross out, so
Right.
this makes it a little more compact.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But I think our sense is that we don't want the president of council automatically to become mayor.
Forever, yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's why we're only on B. We've got A is fine because the temporary acting mayor for president of council, we're all okay with that. But as far as that becoming permanent after 70 days, we don't want that to happen. So we need to look at changing language to say,
well, we would change it to say that after this vacancy is declared, city council has 30 days to appoint somebody.
so upon the.
So you would just go down to, you would go down to where it says, upon the declaration,
Right,
So yeah. this
council
might be-
shall by majority vote appoint a mayor within 30 days.
Yeah, and.
okay, so upon the declaration,
You take
Okay.
out the part that says, president of council shall become mayor and shall cease to be a member of council.
stop, please, stop, Jonathan, stop. So up there, upon the declaration, comma,
Okay.
then would you grab the rest of that text?
This,
And then down to council shall by majority vote. Keep on going down. Council shall,
Okay.
just before that. Okay, so Linda, is that what you're proposing?
If you wanna go straight to council choosing, you take that out.
Go, to be clear, what he's highlighted now, that would come out, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, is that clear to everybody? That's we're saying if the acting mayor doesn't automatically become mayor, that will go away. And then upon the declaration, council shall appoint a mayor, blah, blah, blah.
Uh-huh.
And so if that stays in, what that's saying is that the president of council can just stay mayor.
Yes, unless I'm
This
willing
is
to-
saying instead, the council, only by declaration,
By
if we
vote.
take it out, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think,
That's what everybody wanted. They didn't want an automatic mayor. They wanted the council to vote on that, I believe.
Not everybody. I prefer to leave it as it is. I would prefer to leave.
Are we saying you want an acting mayor or a permanent mayor? Because it's my preference to go with an acting mayor until the vote is decided on a permanent mayor. That's not what we're saying.
No, we're saying we'd have an acting mayor for no more than 70 days
maybe a little longer.
until council
Appoint
votes
somebody, right?
to appoint someone.
And then the appointed mayor
They have to run.
goes until the expiration of the term of the mayor who vacated or a successor is elected and qualified.
Right, with that 180-day
Right.
thing.
Right.
Okay.
So Greg, what did you want?
I would prefer to just leave it as the council president can step into the mayor's shoes if he or she so desires. They can back out and let council appoint somebody. I don't want a situation where we're looking for a mayor and council's arguing back and forth and you get somebody that might not necessarily be up to speed on how the city runs. I think the council president would have a better leg up on stepping into those shoes as opposed to anybody else.
Understandable.
I think that's a good point. I can go with that, yeah. I'm learning to say things out loud.
So we've got two schools of thought here. One is keep it as it is so that the acting mayor would be appointed mayor if she or he is willing and serve until the next election if it's 100, with that
Yeah.
100-day. Or not have that automatically happen and the council would have to vote to appoint somebody either from their ranks or outside their ranks as mayor.
Yeah, so it kind of goes in steps. You immediately have an acting mayor, and then after you get to the magic date, either the council president, who's acting mayor, says, I'll stay on. They say, no, I don't want to stay on, then city council has 30 days to appoint. My only question at that point is 30 days really realistic? If they need 45 days to pick a city council person, do they need 45 days at least to find a new mayor?
Can I ask Greg, why do you prefer that it automatically goes to the council president? Given that the council president, I would expect, would be in the prime position to be given that role in those circumstances. And having it not go to the council president automatically can avoid the situation where someone takes it but then can't do it. You know, and then you end up having more turmoil in the city for longer.
And somebody takes it who isn't really capable of doing it.
But thinks they are.
They think they are, but they're not.
And maybe they're totally capable, they just don't have the time, you know, just life doesn't allow it. It's looks like a more direct route to me, for that reason, so.
And I guess I just think that the city council president has already garnered at least 4 votes on the city council to be elected president. He or she should be schooled in how the city runs. They're obviously gonna be somebody who's been on council, I would anticipate. On council for a number of years, familiar with the systems. My concern is that if you don't have one person kind of in that position automatically with the ability to say yes or no, and you open it up to council, then all of a sudden you have 3 or 4 city council members like, hey, I'd like to be mayor. And so you have
Plus
infighting.
members of the public potentially.
You have infighting if any of them can't necessarily get a maximum. I think it just would lead to more gridlock, I guess. Ultimately is my concern. I would rather have, even if it's a mayor appointed that was city council president and they're there for 180 days or whatever it is, I would rather limp along with that than possibly have somebody that, all the other issues that the city council has encountered on trying to appoint somebody. I guess I would prefer more certainty.
What if we put a clause in that like if no like mayor is appointed by the end of whatever deadline, then it goes to the council president? Like if there's that kind of gridlock.
That's an interesting concept.
Just a note that we've got over an hour's worth of agenda time still ahead of us, so,
This is such a good conversation.
yes.
What I like about what I like about this setup at the very least, and then after hearing Greg's point, was they have an out. They have the ability to step down, that kind of a thing. Versus kicking up a search, it just costs money too, and time, and other things. And this is just a boom, boom, and also, I mean, unless they die on January 2nd, the likelihood of somebody being in for a very long time. So I mean, this is such a worst case that it's like, I mean, I like the no gaps, and also knowing this, hey, is if you're going to be president of council, this might happen. Hope you're good with it. Like if you're not, don't do it. It's like if you don't want to be, help the emergency exit, don't sit in the aisle. Like, and it's just a very clear. So you also know what you're signing up for.
Thank you for flying Boeing.
It's an interesting analogy.
So we're saying that leaving the highlighted text in,
I like the highlighted text now.
leaving it in,
I'm good.
with leaving it in?
Yes, I'm good as Linda wrote it. I'm 100%. I don't know if anyone else is, but
I'm good with this language.
So what Graham was suggesting was kind of flipping this to say, city council has 30 days, and if they don't come to an agreement within 30 days, then the council president gets the prize.
And it could be like, it would, I feel like it would incentivize to resolve the gridlock, like from like a number of different points or of, because I can totally see what you're describing happening, right? That kind of.
Well, what I like about that is that even giving the council some flexibility, some latitude to introduce someone other than the council president, there's a period at the end of the sentence. It doesn't go on indefinitely. I guess if I might argue, all right, I like what Graham is suggesting. I like it quite a bit because it then takes the pressure off the president of council, as when somebody runs to be president of the council, that they can recognize they are not necessarily destined to be the mayor in these circumstances, and so that's another thing. I don't like someone not to go for something because of the possibility. I want them to be willing to say, I'll do it
Yeah.
when they have an opportunity to do it.
I doubt people will read this deep into the charter, to be honest with you, but.
Well, I think,
only when they need to.
the council people might.
Well, I don't know, because, we've heard several people on council bemoaning the fact that Gail had to run so frequently. And I said, well, it's in the charter. So apparently 26 people didn't read it because 26 people applied to fill the last vacancy, so.
Greg, how do you feel about putting in some?
I guess I would still prefer this method as it is here, just to give more certainty. But I could go along with the alternative if this method doesn't have the votes.
Graham, do you see a place in the language where that would come in? 'Cause
Well, yeah, where it would simply say that council shall, by majority vote, appoint a mayor within 30 days after the declaration. If council fails to do so, then the acting mayor becomes mayor.
I see this I see what you're saying, Greg, it's cleaner, it feels like it's just it's tighter, it appears, and the uncertainty, also just thinking about it gives me anxiety. like if you were on council and in that situation, it seems very anxiety inducing and but I don't know, it feels like
We're introducing uncertainty for another 30 days, right? Is what we'd be doing, right? The council appoints within 30 days or 45 days. Then it moves to, if nothing is done, then it moves to which is of concern, but I'm just saying it is time limited to what is defined. That additional uncertainty is time limited.
Yeah, and I think if you have a vacancy that you need to fill by appointment, you have to allow a reasonable amount of time to determine who are the likely candidates and to have some selection process. So,
do we think that 30 days is enough, or are we thinking about upping
Well,
that
I'm
to
thinking maybe
45?
45 makes more sense, but
Should we ask who wants to change it? So who wants to go with Graham's or who wants to stick with the language? And then we can decide, do we still go down this rabbit hole? I mean, it might be a very good route, but I'm just saying like a clear, because Drew pointed out, you know, I've only got another hour.
Mhm.
And I don't think we've gotten through a page, maybe two, you know, I mean,
well, we've covered quite a bit, but
I'm just,
It's been juicy.
so
If-
do we wanna go around the room and just say whether you prefer one or the other?
Well, I'm trying to find the language for Graham's thing, because to me, language is important. So basically, we'd be saying, we would temporarily remove the highlighted text upon the declaration, council shall have within 30 days of the declaration. Pending the appointment, the acting mayor, blah, 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 end of sentence. Then, if the president of council is appointed, that person shall cease to be mayor, blah, 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 kind of thing. So we would take that block and move it down somewhat, but we'd have to modify it.
Yeah, so what it would say is upon the declaration, so this is a declaration of a vacancy, council shall appoint, pending the appointment, the acting mayor continues to serve, continues to be a member of council. And then we would
Right.
say, if council fails to make an appointment within 30 days, then the president of council shall become the mayor, shall assume the duties of mayor and shall cease to be a member of council.
But at that point, they could not decline it.
Yeah, they wouldn't have the option of declining,
Whoa.
which
Yeah.
is kind of a problem
Whoa,
because
Not okay.
if they
Exactly.
make, well, but hopefully, when city council is making their, looking at their options, they're gonna know that.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's part of the incentive, to
Now, the
like break the
president of
gridlock.
council will let it be
Right.
known whether they're ready, willing, and able to take over or not.
They've got 45 days to get out of town.
Write a resignation letter.
Yeah.
Because I think in that situation, the president of council could then like whip the votes necessary to get somebody elected.
Yeah,
So we're setting up a different sort of crisis, kind of.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing, that I think it's kind of maybe not appropriate to put the president of council in that position
Right.
where they're kind of stuck with it, especially if they simply can't do it because they have a job that they don't wanna quit.
So Graham, how do you feel about that?
I feel like that would, in my mind, that's the incentive to like break the gridlock, and to like, because like the president of council should be able to find the 4 votes to get somebody appointed, right? Like in that situation. But if that didn't happen, I guess that would be really terrible. So I don't know.
So there's the higher risk in your,
Because then they would probably just immediately resign,
yeah.
right? If they couldn't do it.
Exactly, which is where you're at,
And then you
at.
just start over.
I think we're better the way I wrote it, except I would suggest we change 30 days to 45.
So what we're seeing up here, including the highlighted section, would be what we get, but we have changed 30 days to 45. Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying? Okay. So considering now the possible apocalyptic scenario that you painted,
Mhm. And they resign again,
yeah.
that would be bad.
So Linda, to get back to, I think we're ready to do, where does everybody stand on this? Because I think we're pretty clear about the consequences now.
Okay, Drew?
I favor what we've got on the board.
Okay, Jonathan?
as written.
Guy?
As written.
Greg?
It's written with the 45 days.
Graham?
As written with the 45 days.
It's okay to stand up
Roland?
for,
I agree.
yeah, which doesn't
Okay,
count.
and everybody agrees with 45 days instead of 30?
Yes.
You look pained, Guy.
I would just argue 60 days wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And when you look at what it's taking to get the council seat, where people are applying, and then there's going to be legal women voters, which is really good. It gives a chance for people to see you know what I mean? I just see that 45 looks a little tight, but I'd accept 45. I just say, would 60 days be harmful in the circumstances? And if you think it is, then we'll just go back, just leave 45.
What do you all think about that?
I mean, my knee-jerk reaction is the mayor's more, I'm thinking like a, CEO executive, like doer-ish, and it would be more like review resumes or history and then do Whereas for council, they're actually representing and kind of legislation, or like, it just seems like I should go deeper, I get that, but so 45 to me, fine. I just, if you give people the ability to add process, they will add process, and they will add, like they'll.
I can accept 45. I just don't want to be in charge of that process.
Anybody else want to comment on that?
Well, I favor 45 because, sort of like what Greg is saying, this encourages the council to pull themselves together and take action. I'm afraid if we give them more time, we just set up more time for bickering.
And at this point, we're already 60 days, potentially 60 days in, right? With the temporary mayor? So this is
More like 70.
70 plus the additional, so
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
it'd be 45.
Yeah, I think that's good. 45 is good.
All right, so we're with 45. Anybody care about 45 changing? Is 45 okay with everybody?
Go once, go
Roland?
I'm good with that, we can try it.
Okay, so we've approved that with 45 days. Okay, fabulous. Moving right along. We're at 5.1. So
Want to move on the agenda or?
We're still moving through.
we're in section 5.1,
So now
Article
we've
5,
got
section 1.
half an hour left to cover an hour plus of agenda items.
Well, I think we all recognize that the agenda was ambitious.
Okay.
I did, I don't know if you, but I think we're making some good progress. So in Article 5, sections 1 and 2 basically address the same theme, which is to provide that city council has the authority to determine functions and duties of departments and directors. It doesn't take away the mayor's role and his authority to run the departments. But this is consistent with provisions in the other charters that we've been looking at. So I think this is one of the places where, because the Committee for an Elected Mayor didn't have the latitude to expand their ballot issue, they didn't give attention to these provisions. But that's the background on the changes.
Since this is administrative, I don't think in your proposed section B by ordinance, I don't think the council should be determining the administrative branch of. As it's written here, the council could abolish a department.
Well, the charter provides that certain departments can't be abolished.
Certain cannot be.
Well, the law, finance, like if it's in the charter, they can't abolish it, right?
True.
Like the ordinance can't supersede the charter, so. But
It
yes,
says
they
here-
can others.
Well, it says here in Linda's text, may combine or abolish any department, division, board, blah, 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 and establishment.
Well, you raise a
No, no,
good
but-
point. That should say except as otherwise provided.
Yes.
Well, but I also just thought that ordinance can't trump the charter, like, period.
But this is the charter. If the charter gives the council the right to abolish any department, as what we're proposing here, that is charter.
But they'd have to amend the charter is what I'm saying.
No, well, I think Drew makes a good point, though. It creates an internal conflict within the document unless you say, except as otherwise provided in this charter, they can combine or abolish. So that's a good catch, Drew, thank you.
Which
Yeah,
will
where's that?
assume-
Where do you want me to fix?
If you look in B, where it says necessary, comma, and, you add there, comma, except as otherwise provided in this
Oh.
charter.
Comma. Out as otherwise provided, got it.
And I'm still questioning why the council should be able to change the administrative side of government.
Well, I'm looking at the models of other cities that have an elected mayor. And I think this goes to the whole balance of powers issue. That it's consistent with the division of responsibilities between the two branches of government that this authority goes to council, while the mayor has the administrative authority to run the departments.
I myself weigh quite heavily the wisdom of the 4 other cities we've been referring to, and each of those 4 cities, council designs the structure and the mayor administers the city. So I like what is being done here. I do have a couple comments on other aspects of it, but I do think that the responsibility in Cleveland Heights should move to the council for that reason, for the wisdom of the 4 cities we've been looking at.
Roland, do you have any thoughts on this?
Actually, I didn't hear, I didn't hear Gabriel, so I can't comment, unless you want to summarize it for me.
What didn't you hear?
I didn't hear the last, comment.
I think he didn't hear you.
So if I can say it again, then I just briefly, we have looked consistently at 4 other cities and what their charters tell us. And in many cases, I think they've given us some very good information. They have a great deal of wisdom. I believe that 4 out of 4 cities which give council the responsibility to design the structure of the administration I basically see that as convincing that that's where that responsibility belongs in Cleveland Heights.
And I would agree with it, just looking at models from across the country. That's where I come from. How is this consistent with other mid-sized municipalities or smaller municipalities? And so council would be a body that comes up with how they're gonna act.
Couldn't understand
Go
what
ahead,
he said.
Joe.
I couldn't understand what Roland said.
He said,
He said that this is consistent with what he's seen in charters across the country.
and that's what is important to him, is what other mid-sized municipalities have done.
Craig, do you have any comments?
I would agree with the consensus, at least the discussion, that it should run through city council.
Me as well.
Jonathan?
I'm good with the way you edited it, and Drew's kind of not otherwise provided in this.
Yeah, I think that's an important change. So are we okay with that then? With that change that Drew suggested?
Yes.
Yes.
Except as otherwise provided.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, does anybody have any other comments on 5.1 or 5.2?
Can I just ask, we're saying in here that there are 7 departments that are in our charters. 7 departments have to be established per our charter. In the other cities' charters, sometimes they simplify it down to finance.
I think our charter already says these are the departments. I don't think I changed that. Yeah, that's in the 7 are already in our charter.
Yeah, okay, and what I'm doing is raising the question that, again, the wisdom of other cities, they have, I think, finance, they have fewer than we have. For example, they don't have, I don't think I've seen communications and public engagement anywhere.
Yeah, I guess these were done in 2019, effective 2022,
Okay,
so
that's recent,
Yes.
yeah, been recent.
pretty recent.
So I withdraw any concerns about that.
Anybody have any other questions or comments about 5.1 and 5.2?
Well, we haven't looked at 5.2, so you want us to look at 5.2 now?
Sure.
Okay.
And then I'm looking at your summary you had emailed us, Linda.
Yes, so
And you said that you insert a statement, director shall have powers and duties as prescribed by the charter or by council.
Mm-hmm.
This retains the right of the mayor to appoint directors, but in all cases, the appointment director is subject to approval by a majority of council.
Right.
And then you mentioned that there's a new piece.
I added a sentence about the director of law that was, I think that came from Lakewood. Yeah, that came from Lakewood.
Lakewood and South Euclid, I believe,
Yeah,
as recent changes to their charter.
Just for clarity of layout, the very last sentence, the director of finance, since we're skipping from the director of law to the director of finance, I would put a paragraph there.
okay. Can make that a C.
Did you get that, Jonathan?
I don't know if you
I'm
want
about
to do this or not, but
I mean, I think it makes sense. I see where you're going with it. What's interesting is that it only speaks to law and finance. It doesn't go through every single director. I don't think it has to, but it's just
Yeah, and I think if you split that out into a separate paragraph, then the very last sentence needs to be in a separate paragraph too.
yes, I was gonna say that.
So I'm wondering if we could just keep them all in one paragraph, but if you think it needs to be split out, we could certainly
this
do
is what
that.
it would look like. How about that?
That's not overly cumbersome. It's a little bit clearer because we talked about the director of law, now we're talking about the director of finance, and now we're talking about all the directors kind of a thing.
Well, we could just make this the last sentence up here, could we? We just talked about all the directors.
I'm
So
worried
you're
about that.
taking the last sentence of B and putting it at the end of A?
So yes.
Okay.
The nothing shall be construed as preventing, I was thinking like, okay, here's everybody. Then one of law, one of finance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another alternative, yeah.
Cause at the very minimum, what I think Drew's point would help with is just general communication of somebody looking at it. They're like, boom, boom, cool.
Okay.
Okay. The highlighted part, you're gonna move up.
Yeah, I think it should go up to here.
Yeah, I
And
think
that's
that's
AD.
fine.
Such magic.
That way, it's just everybody, law, finance. Oh, look, time for holding elections, like.
Okay, is everybody okay with that? Roland, you okay with that?
No questions.
Okay. So now we're all the way down to 7.
And I know we said, okay, but we haven't voted, so I don't know how we're processing this anymore. But
Okay.
we did vote on certain sections after we our consensus approved certain changes.
Right, but I think the reason we went around and took a vote before was because there were differences of opinion, but on this one, everybody seems to be okay with it. So does anybody wanna take a separate vote on this?
I'm still not okay with the council having the authority to abolish departments,
Okay.
that kind of
I think,
Um,
let's take a vote. I motion that we approve section 5.1 and 5.2 as written and amended during discussion.
Second.
Can we just go right to question?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
nay.
Okay.
So now we can go to 7.1. If that was your intention,
Yes, please.
all right.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I've got too much going on here. It's a good thing there's not a camera, I was typing on my phone anyway.
7.1.
Approved.
So in 7.1, let's see. This is just, I added a cross-reference for council vacancies because there was a cross-reference for mayoral vacancies, so it seemed to have them both covered here. So it's not a substantive change, it's just adding a cross-reference.
So, quick question, is that something that either law department or facilitator would do, is take a look over everything and make sure that there are cross references where, like, will they put that work in?
Yeah, we'll have to do that eventually.
Okay. I mean, I think it's a great idea. It's just one of those, it'd be nice that,
Mm-hmm,
we're glad you caught it now and somebody
Yeah.
else is gonna look too, right? 'Cause
yeah,
cool.
One of the beauties of having that full, complete charter.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so is everybody okay with 7.1?
Well, the, due to a first red section, or due to a reason other than a lapse of the term, what do we mean by a lapse of the term?
It means removal, resignation, death.
Oh,
So
like,
it's a vacancy, in other words.
Yeah.
Okay, so how about saying vacancy rather than lapse?
Because there could be a vacancy if a term elapses too.
so just, what is a,
Not following.
what's a lapse, like, yeah, try me again. Lapse a term, like, so if they're dead, it's vacant. If they're severely injured, it's vacant. If they move, it's vacant. Is the lapse mean that they didn't get reelected? Is that a lapse? Because in that case, yeah, I kind of get saying lapse because you want somebody to argue, well, I wasn't elected, well, your term, I just,
Well, I think you're saying it's a vacancy due to a reason other than a lapse of the term because you're cross-referencing back to the section that tells you what to do in that instance.
I'm just questioning the term lapse. What does that mean?
It means the term is up.
Like the
Time
end.
expires.
yeah, so that means,
How about end of the term?
You could say end of the term.
Yeah, to
You're
me,
bothered
that's
by the
much-
word lapse?
Yes, I am. It's much
Okay.
clearer to say the end of the term. Lapse is like something falling apart, not just ending.
Okay, we could say other than the
Yeah,
end
or if you
of
want
the
to say
term.
expiration kind of thing. Same thing with in the next one, other than lapse.
Okay, why don't
of
we
the-
say expiration,
Yeah.
other than the expiration of
Since
the
that's the
term?
language
Right,
that's
Yeah,
used.
that's good.
They have a shelf life. So we substitute expiration for lapse in that sentence, and then in the next
Yeah.
section, expiration of the mayor's term. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so
good.
that due to a reason other than, well, there we go. Other than an expiration of the term of a member council,
The expiration of the term
to a
of a
reason
member of council.
then the expiration. The expiration of the term of a member of council.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, here we go. Is other.
It'll be just the expiration.
Expiration of theirs. Okay, thank you.
Nice.
Okay. So with those changes, anybody have any questions? Everybody okay with this? Roland?
I am.
Okay, do we need to take a vote or is everybody okay?
Well, if by some fluke we had go for ranked choice voting, then that last section will be rendered problematic. But since we're not there yet, I think we should adopt this as we've, discussed it
Mhm.
today and use that as a text to possibly modify.
Correct.
Sounds good.
Would ranked choice voting eliminate the need for a primary?
I think it's the number of candidates, right, that you're speaking to?
It's also because
Who's the
then,
highest number?
well, if we have ranked choice voting, that would see, this says only two names would appear in the November ballot, and ranked choice voting would say more than that.
So I just put a note for that paragraph saying we would need to modify if we pursue ranked choice voting.
That's, I mean, in my mind, that's kind of a plus for ranked choice voting, that there would not have to be a primary in that situation.
But thank you for noting that, Drew.
Sure, yeah. So, but then now, as we can vote on that section as we've modified it with certain contingencies applied.
So the
Unless there's an objection, I don't think.
the
that-
last thing here,
So we're everybody's okay with that?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's official, okay, great.
Article 7, Section 3, this has to do with number of signatures on a nominating position. So I don't have a copy of that in this set here, but if you can
No, it's
scroll
not
down
in
to
this
that.
set. I will do something like that.
So this is an issue that had come up when people came to visit with us. right now,
I'm gonna
we
throw up.
need, for signatures on nominating petitions, it's 2% of registered voters at the last municipal election. And city council members are suggesting that that should be lowered. So my draft proposes 50 signatures for city council and 100 for mayor. South Euclid uses 150 for city council and 300 for at-large city council, 600 for mayor. Shaker Heights and University Heights use percentages at the last election. Lakewood uses state law, which is 50. So I propose 50 for city council and 100 for mayor.
Well, at our last meeting, Guy said similarly, let's give them a number rather than a percentage, and I completely agree with that. It's like rather than a moving target, you know what you're after here, it's so much easier, and I think if you think 50 and 100 is good.
But can I simply solicit a little bit of discussion in the sense that I do think that having 50 petitions signed, or 100 or whatever, okay, is sufficient to show support for the person, for the position. And yet I don't believe that so many people would make use of that position, that it would become a burden to anybody trying to administer elections. So I just want to make that an explicit assumption that I'm making, that this makes it simpler and easier for people to say, I want to be considered for that position,
Yeah.
but it does not have any significant downsides that I can see. And I solicit any other comments if you think there are downsides.
Lakewood, which has the 50, do we see a preponderance of people like trying to run for election in Lakewood? That's unrealistic. I would wonder.
I don't know, honestly, but I think it's interesting that state law says 50, so that's kind of a default provision. So again, I don't know that we need in Cleveland Heights to have really high barriers to entry if somebody wants to run for city council.
It's more democratic. I mean, I hope that's most of our thrust in this is to make it more democratic kind of thing. And I think 50 for council and 100 for mayor is about the lowest we can set the bar according to state law. So I'm in favor of that.
So I'm just a little confused because this draft, and I'll admit if I still has 2% in it.
It doesn't, that you're looking at doesn't have number of suggestions.
Got it.
Not there yet.
All right.
Specs in the mail.
So but get rid of the percentage and explicitly say the 50 and the 100
Yeah.
of the registered voters.
Which saves a lot of calculation.
Is it registered voters that voted in the last?
It's
Yeah,
just 50 or 100 registered voters have to sign the petitions. So you don't even have to refer back to the last election. It's
Which simplifies things.
clean slate.
And the Board of Election enforces the registration, proving this person's
They
Right,
registered.
check
when
the
you
signatures.
They're the ones that look at those
Yeah.
petitions.
Yeah.
But make sure you stay within the lines.
Okay.
Hooray.
Anybody have any other discussion about that? Is everybody good with 50 and 100?
When we get the text that's somewhere in cyberspace, our
It's
scribes
right.
will do that.
I'm sorry, it's in the matrix, I took responsibility for putting those things into actual writing. Okay, so that's what, I now have the guidance that I was looking for. Thank you.
Well, did Linda also write something then?
Well, I put something in the draft, I thought I did, that
It
just
might
for this, not for referendum petitions and initiatives, I left that untouched.
Okay.
I've looked up what some other people do on that and added them to my chart, and I could send that to you. It's complicated,
Yes,
but I could send it to you.
yeah, please, if it's not already in the chart.
And the final thing I had in my email was Article 12, Section 1. Can you go down to that?
I can't.
Civil Service Commission?
Yeah, this just has to do with approval of appointments. I just changed it to say it would require approval by a majority of council rather than by 4 votes, because every place else it talks about majority rather than a specific number, so I was just making it consistent.
So here is where you said, the Civil Service Commission, registered voters not holding other, appointed by the mayor, which appointment is subject to and effective upon the approval of council, not acting by at least 4 members, but by saying by majority.
Yeah,
So instead of saying you only need 4 votes, changing it to majority.
right.
we have to say simple majority, or is that just understood?
No, majority's, I think, understood.
So unless I've grabbed the wrong page, this is a considerable expansion on what's in the current charter.
No, it's just, instead of saying 4 votes, it says majority.
Okay, then I must have the wrong page.
What's the
It's Article
this should
12.
be the current charter language, Drew. So it should match with whatever you have at 12.1.
Yeah, I think what happened is, I think that the 2019 changes may have said a vote of 4 rather than the current
Awesome.
charter.
Yeah.
That makes
This
no
is
sense.
This is the 2022 text, I'm looking at the first section.
Yeah, but I think that the language that was proposed by the 2019 commission may have added the words 4 votes, and that's what I'm changing to majority.
This doesn't
I
get you-
understand that, I'm
yeah.
talking about the 2019
I
commission.
understand that, but I'm talking about the current charter, which
I-
prevails over the 2019 proposed kind of thing, and I'm wondering where the extra language fits into the current charter here, so.
Well, I was hoping that what was on the screen would show us, because I thought what was on the screen would show us what was proposed by the prior commission.
It's got all marked up. There we go.
Does that have something about 4 votes?
Okay, it was added in.
Yeah.
So the acting by 4 votes was from 2019.
Right.
Got it. And then what you're looking at, see, there's where the 6 years
Yes,
are.
exactly.
Because I wasn't seeing the
So
years.
that's why when I said that's a considerable addition to what's in the current charter, I was correct in that, because this is incorporating the 2019 text.
So sorry for the confusion about that, but all I'm doing is changing 4 to majority.
But we're also changing a big chunk of the charter.
Well, that, we
so-
already agreed that we liked that. That's why it's in there.
Yeah.
That's
When we
from the
did the
2019
2019.
commission.
Yes. We can both be right, you know,
Oh, yeah.
so.
And I'm sorry it was confusing.
Yeah,
Are
So
we-
we're okay with that?
I have
did you
no
do a
idea.
majority?
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Anyone
Anybody have
else?
a question,
Anybody
problem?
not?
And this is just so that if there, like right now, there's a vacancy, you would
No.
be able to just,
Well, they need 4 if there's 6 of them, because 3's not a majority.
right, unless someone was absent or something.
Then you'd have a majority of the quorum that's present.
Right,
Right.
okay. That seems fine.
I'm good
So
with that.
did you write in majority there? I didn't.
Not yet.
Okay.
Okay. So, thank you all for your patience in going through all of that.
Actually, by a majority of members.
Well, it's members in a majority of the quorum.
No, you just say majority.
Okay.
It's assumed to be.
So, I'm sorry that took up everything. So-
Excuse me, what I wanna say is thank you very much for all that you did here, because this, I believe, is the most complex and the most time, I think will be the most time-consuming aspect of what we're doing, because it has to do with the balance of power, which, to the thinking of me anyway, is one of the most important things we can address. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate all the commission giving the attention that we have and getting to the point where we have as well.
Thank you.
So let me suggest that we have at our next meeting, we will begin with 7A from today's agenda, which is Drew's draft both of the non-discrimination and the hybrid method of electing city council, and you should have your finance and budget in shape.
I'm gonna meet with Tara tomorrow, and I think I'll have that ready by Friday, and I'll be ready.
Now, just as a
Tara's the
reminder,
acting finance director.
for our next meeting, which is the April 3rd meeting, we decided that we were gonna take a vote on ranked choice voting and on the
Council.
method of electing city council.
Yeah, the ward versus
Yeah.
at large.
Which is next Wednesday.
Yes, next Wednesday. Okay, so you don't have anybody here for public comments. Action items, I don't think we have any, do we?
I didn't get any, other than just keeping in our mind that we'll find a bucket for the preamble. That was pretty much it.
Okay. And then lessons learned. We accomplished a lot tonight, guys. Thank you.
I feel like that's my takeaway. I felt like this was a super productive meeting, like we were making decisions.
I just have this little ball of urgency inside me because of the time I'm just thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I have a solution, and I'm glad we came to decisions, but it just, I could feel it, you know, so it's like,
Yeah, well, it felt to me like people had prepared and were ready to discuss things, and that always helps move things
Yeah.
forward. So especially when we have drafts in front of us that people are so thoughtfully preparing, I think things will move quickly.
I agree.
Speaking of action item, I think we need to find the preamble language that we agreed on so that when we're talking about that as a possible bucket, we have the language in front of us, so. I don't know.
Is it at the top of the document, Jonathan?
Top of the stack. That's
Yeah.
the only changes I have.
It should be this.
All right, yeah, can we get that either printed or mailed to us or something like that, so we can look at it before next Wednesday? Just remind ourselves of it.
Yeah, we can. I mean, I think we've already agreed on it, but we could look at it.
Okay, as long as we've agreed on it.
I thought we did.
I thought we did too, but I mean,
Well,
We just have to
didn't-
decide which bucket to put it in.
Yeah, I don't think we were at the point where we're saying, okay, this is our definitive text now. I think it was still in flux.
And that's the working document, right, that we have.
Yes.
yeah,
We do have this in Dropbox.
the 2023-24 CRC red line draft amendment charter.
Right.
So question for Drew. Drew, have you gotten access to Dropbox?
Yes, I finally did. I had to go through a Gmail account kind of thing and all that sort of stuff. We're trying to get in there, yes.
I want to commend you on your persistence.
Yeah, I'm sure that was very frustrating.
Yes.
And that's just getting access.
Yeah. And I don't know why. It's really, really strange. Sometimes Lee's emails come through. Graham forwarded me something and it also disappeared. There's some little, what's it called, cookie or something. I don't know how to describe it, but for some reason, emails that come through City Hall disappear, except if they come to my Gmail account. And Gmail says, yeah, bring them on in. The hell with the company.
It does seem like I'm getting all your emails now.
I believe so, yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it's always
As far as
probably
we know,
not.
yeah, but- so,
Yahoo was not playing well.
Yeah, I
Had
guess
some
not.
firewall or something.
Yeah, very bizarre. So, but anyhow, thanks everybody for the patience in connecting me.
Just one question. Do you check spam?
Absolutely,
You do?
all the
Okay.
time.
All right, so you
all
know.
the time.
Okay.
Practically
So
religiously. I cross myself before I.
throw salt over your
Yes, garlic and a.
Holy water.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks, Roland.
Thank you all.
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.